The Christmas Promise. The snow fell softly on Christmas Eve, coating the cobblestone streets of downtown Boston in a blanket of white. Marcus Reynolds walked alone through the quiet alley behind his office building, his expensive coat doing little to warm the cold emptiness he'd been carrying for 3 years. Marcus was a man who had everything, at least on paper. At 38, he ran one of the most successful tech companies in New England. His corner office overlooked the harbor. His penthouse apartment had floor-to-ceiling windows. His son, David, attended the best private school in the city, but none of it filled the void left when his wife, Sarah, had passed away. Tonight, like every Christmas Eve since her death, Marcus had stayed late at the office, avoiding the holiday cheer that seemed to mock his grief. David was with Sarah's parents for the evening, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts and a stack of quarterly reports he couldn't bring himself to care about. He took the back exit, as he always did, preferring the quiet alley to the decorated main streets where families laughed and carolers sang. The sound of his footsteps echoed off the brick walls, accompanied only by the soft whisper of falling snow. That's when he saw her. At first, Marcus thought it was just a pile of discarded clothes next to the dumpster. But then the pile moved, and he realized with a jolt that it was a child, a little girl, no more than 7 or 8 years old, curled up against the cold metal. Her small body trembling, Marcus stopped in his tracks, his heart suddenly pounding. He looked around the empty alley, expecting to see a parent or guardian nearby. There was no one. Just the girl, alone in the freezing night. "Hey," he called out softly, approaching slowly so as not to frighten her. "Are you okay?" The girl lifted her head. Even in the dim light from the street lamp, Marcus could see her face was pale, her lips tinged blue from the cold. She had tangled brown hair and wide green eyes that looked at him with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. "I'm fine," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She pulled her thin jacket tighter around herself, but Marcus could see she was anything but fine. "Where are your parents?" Marcus asked, crouching down to her level, keeping a respectful distance. The girl's eyes filled with tears. "My mom, she's in the hospital. She told me to wait outside, but that was a long time ago. I tried to go back in, but they said visiting hours were over." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "What's your name?" "Emma," she said quietly. "I'm Marcus. Listen, Emma, it's Christmas Eve, and it's freezing out here. Let's get you somewhere warm, okay? Then we'll figure out how to find your mom." Emma hesitated, and Marcus understood why. She didn't know him. Sarah had always taught David never to go anywhere with strangers. But as another gust of cold wind swept through the alley, making Emma shiver violently, she nodded. Marcus carefully removed his coat and wrapped it around her small shoulders. It swallowed her completely, but he could see the relief on her face as the warmth surrounded her. He picked her up gently. She weighed almost nothing and carried her to his car. At his apartment, Marcus made hot chocolate while Emma sat on his couch, still wrapped in his coat, looking around the spacious room with wide eyes. When he handed her the mug, her small hands wrapped around it gratefully. "Can you tell me your mom's name?" Marcus asked gently. "And which hospital she's at?" "Jennifer Hayes," Emma said between sips. "St. Catherine's Hospital. She has pneumonia. She got really sick last week." Marcus's assistant mind immediately went to work. St. Catherine's was across town, a public hospital that served mostly low-income families. He pulled out his phone and made a call. While Emma drank her hot chocolate, Marcus spoke quietly with the hospital staff. When he hung up, his expression was troubled. "Emma," he said carefully, sitting down across from her, "your mom is going to be okay, but she needs to stay in the hospital for a few more days. Is there anyone else? Grandparents? An aunt or uncle?" Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's just us. It's always been just us." Marcus's heart broke. He understood that loneliness, that feeling of facing the world with only one person in your corner. And he understood what it felt like when that person was suddenly gone. "Did she tell you anything before she went into the hospital?" Emma nodded, wiping her eyes with the oversized sleeve of his coat. "She said not to worry. She said everything would be okay." "She said," Emma's voice broke, She said she was sorry she couldn't give me a real Christmas this year. Marcus stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the snow-covered city. His reflection stared back at him, and for a moment he saw Sarah's face beside his own, the way she used to look at him when he was being too stubborn to see what was right in front of him. He turned back to Emma. "How would you feel about staying here tonight? Tomorrow is Christmas, and I have a son about your age. We have a guest room, and in the morning we'll visit your mum together. I'll make sure she has everything she needs." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? Really?" Marcus said, and he found himself smiling for the first time in weeks. That night, Marcus called David at his grandparents' house. "I need you to come home," he said. "I have someone I want you to meet." The next morning, Christmas Day, Marcus's apartment was transformed. David and Emma sat on the floor by the tree, comparing the gifts Marcus had hastily bought the night before at the only store still open. Sarah's parents had brought over breakfast and were already treating Emma like another grandchild, but the real magic happened at the hospital. When they arrived at Jennifer's room, the young mother burst into tears at the sight of her daughter. Marcus hung back, giving them space to reunite, but Jennifer called him over. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice hoarse from illness. "I was so scared. I told Emma to wait in the lobby, but I didn't know they'd make her leave. I've been out of my mind with worry." Marcus pulled a chair close to her bed. "I'd like to help if you'll let me. I know what it's like to struggle alone. My wife passed away 3 years ago, and if it hadn't been for people who stepped in to help, I don't know where David and I would be." Over the next hour, Marcus learned Jennifer's story. She'd been working 2 jobs to support Emma after her husband left. When she got sick, she'd lost both positions. They'd lost their apartment. Everything had fallen apart. "I have a proposal," Marcus said. "My company needs someone in human resources. It's entry-level, but it has benefits including healthcare. And I know someone who has a rental property they're trying to fill. If you're interested, I can make some calls." Jennifer stared at him, tears flowing freely. "Why would you do this for us?" Marcus glanced back at the doorway, where Emma and David were playing a card game in the hallway, their laughter echoing through the corridor. "Because someone else would have done it for me," he said simply. "And because it's Christmas. And because I think Sarah would have wanted me to." 6 months later, on a warm summer evening, Marcus stood in that same alley behind his office building. But this time he wasn't alone. David ran ahead with Emma, both of them laughing as they headed to the car where Jennifer waited, ready for their weekly dinner together. Marcus looked up at the evening sky, thinking of Sarah. He'd spent 3 years believing he was supposed to walk through life alone, carrying his grief like a weight he deserved to bear. But finding Emma had shown him something different. Sometimes the people we're meant to help are also the ones who help us heal. Sometimes a chance encounter isn't chance at all. And sometimes Christmas miracles come wrapped not in bright paper and bows, but in the form of a little girl sleeping beside a dumpster, waiting to remind a broken man how to open his heart again. Marcus smiled and followed his family to the car, leaving the lonely alley behind forever.